in this one is a little bit more dramatic. Of course, what is LA without the drama, right? You have Hollywood there, you have the best like theater production there. We got to talk about this. Le Clutch, Le GM, Clutch Sports not happy with each other. They are pissed. And again, these next two topics are going to be combined together. The Lakers soap opera like season, and of course this is from Clutch Points, doesn't seem to be slowing down in any way. LeBron James joined the team to help them win the title. Obviously they did already, but according to Eric Princess of Bleacher Report, James representatives at Clutch Sports are not pleased with the Lakers. Their relationship is at its lowest point, an utterly disappointing season. The person who reported this said that the team may have to make a key decision on James since this summer, since he can be a free agent after next season. We all know that they're not happy about Pelinka because Pelinka refused to trade Westbrook and a future first round pick for Houston guards and Clutch client John Wall. Pete, this to me, I'm not sure what to think of it. There's also an update that says Stephen A. Smith, also on First Take, went to say on First Take on the air that Rich Paul denies these allegations. He denies these rumors are even true. So knowing all that, Pete, what is your takeaway of this story of Clutch and Rob Pelinka? Is there something there? What do you make of it?
I mean, definitely, yes, right? Like this is the thing that happens every time with LeBron, right? Like we get hit with this and then we debate if it's real or not, and then we find out in 6 months that, oh, of course it was real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once Rob Pelinka's fired, which is going to happen if LeBron is going to stay in Los Angeles, right? Now it's at the point, of course, it's one or the other, right? I
Mm-hmm.
would say going into this off season. It's pretty interesting though, just in the sense that I question Rob Pelinka from the particular place of like, why are you here if this isn't what you were expecting, right? Like, if you really wanted to GM a team for the long term, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which is what he's doing, right? Because by making a sound choice, which is I would say what Rob Pelinka did was a sound choice for the Lakers as a franchise, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
trading your last first round pick in the 2000 or the 2020s, right? Or
Right.
close to it. Or a guy, John Wall, who has the same gigantic contract that Russell Westbrook has. He almost certainly is not going to opt out of it. He's going to be even less tradable than Russell Westbrook is a year from now. And you're one pick lighter, right? So you solve none of your problems long term. I guess my point is this, right? This is what you have to expect if you're the GM of LeBron James's team. You have
Yeah.
to be ready for this. And you have to be prepared to just say, if I don't want the drama, which you know there will be if you don't do what they ask of you, why
Yeah.
are you here? What are you there for? Make the
Yeah.
trade or don't be there. Go if you, because I'm conflicted in the sense that, like, from an actual fan's perspective or somebody that really appreciates the inner workings of these trades and what it takes to build a franchise, right? Rob Pelinka made the sound choice. He really did. I mean, Russell Westbrook is not going to be, I mean, he's not that much worse than John Wall. We haven't even seen John Wall play in a year, right? So
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, like, you cannot keep trading your future away if you're this franchise. The question is, you knew this is what you had in LeBron, right?
Yep.
Like, this is what it is. So what are you doing? It's kind of one of
Yeah.
those things where you just have to question, why are you even in this position if this isn't what you're prepared to do? That's all I have to wonder.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Pete. Like, we look at the situation again. I want to read what Stephen A. Smith had to say on First Take. He said, Rich Paul called me yesterday, asked me to quote him on the story about him, and essentially them wanting the Lakers to trade Russell Westbrook and a first round pick to Houston for John Wall. He wanted me to state emphatically that there's absolutely positively no truth to that whatsoever. He never did that. He did not do that. And we all know that I think he did do that. I think that, when it comes to the Lakers, they're always, and especially Rich Paul and LeBron, they're kind of involved in this drama now. Is that, like, they want to make sure that there's no negative spin on the PR of, like, LeBron James's decisions, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
because we all know that the trade that was originally going to happen for Rob Pelinka was they were going to trade away Kuzma, they were going to trade Montrezl Harrell, KCP, all the way to go to Sacramento for, I believe, Buddy Hield, and I don't know what other, like, bunch of players.
I think it
Obviously
was
not.
really Buddy Hield.
Yeah, it was
I
really
think that was
Buddy
pretty
Hield.
legit.
I mean, if they would have known that Tyrese Halliburton was on the market, I probably would have looked into that. But nevertheless, again, like I just think that when it comes to all this, this is LeBron's creation. Like I love LeBron. I think that he's obviously a goat, but at the same time, this is what he created here in LA. Like this is what he creates in Cleveland too. I mean, we remember that team with Isaiah Thomas, and then they traded away Isaiah Thomas and was able to get Jordan. I can't remember if they got Jordan Clarkson, but they got Rodney Hood. They got Larry Nance Jr. Like they got a bunch of those players.
They got Clarkson in that deal too.
They got Clarkson in that deal. I mean, we remember that team, and it just wasn't enough. And that's why LeBron left, and ultimately kind of left Cleveland a mess, but also was a blessing in disguise for them because they were able to get their guy in Evan Mobley and then rebuild this team with Darius Garland as well. So they have a good core nucleus for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the problem is, and this always happens with the LA Lakers, just because LA, and we see it with the Dodgers, we see it with the Rams, they're not a team that's looking to rebuild, right? LA, you're never, like, especially as an LA team, you're not given the chance to rebuild. You're not given the opportunity to rebuild. Because look what happened, right? They got Lonzo Ball, they got Brandon Ingram, they got Julius Randle, they got all these players that were nice, but they never seemed to mesh well together. And that's why they don't want, because they don't have anyone in the front office like Sam Presti or any of these other GMs that are geniuses. They don't have any of those guys in the front office. They obviously have Rob Pelinka, who's more of I would say more of like a used car salesman. Like he's trying to get like all the fancy people, the flashy people, and really try to create an environment there for them. And so, again, I think that Rich Paul did try to look for a trade. To me, it's just like I think that had to happen because obviously working with Westbrook is just not working for the LA Lakers. Like no matter what they have done so far, it just has not seemed to work for them. And so they needed to find a way to get rid of Russell Westbrook. But the problem with that is, you go to, Houston Rocket for John Wall, like you talked about, Pete. He hasn't played in a year. He hasn't played this season, if much at all. And so, like, you're really going to bring this guy in who hasn't played all season, hasn't really played any meaningful minutes to now go into Lakerland and try to do stuff. I mean, it's the pressure of being the third wheel for LeBron. It just doesn't, only some players are able to handle it. We even saw Kevin Love not able to handle it for so long. Chris Bosh, I think, is the only third wheel that was able to handle it.
Yeah. About Ilgauskas. I think he did a pretty good job backing me down.
Well, you got Cedrinis and Bergeau?
See, the only thing I would push back just a little bit, right, is in the sense that maybe they know John Wall, like he is a clutch client, right? Mm-hmm. They're not going to trade for him if they know he's washed, right? They wouldn't do that. Like, if anybody has the intel on what he's looking like behind closed doors and like open gym, right? They know. So I would say there's that, right? The other thing, and this is maybe like, I think this is where LeBron haters would really take issue with what I'm saying, but it's not really an excuse for him. It's more a matter of like, it's just the way life is, right? If you let somebody get away with something for so long, it becomes commonplace. Not only is it commonplace, they think it's expected of them, right? And it comes time to make a big decision, and they're ready. They've been making big decisions the whole time. Now you finally say, I don't really like how the last few decisions you decided to make for us went, and now I'm going to say I'm taking my ball and I'm going home, right? I'm done with this. It's my turn to take the wheel, right?
Right.
That never works for anybody.
Yeah.
Under any circumstance. Like, it doesn't matter how humble the person is that you're talking to. It doesn't matter how great they are, how bad they are. Nobody ever reacts well to that. And especially when it's LeBron James and his company that he owns behind closed doors and makes all the decisions for that are maybe solely created to help him win championships, right? Like, if you are going to do that to all of them, you have to understand that you just signed your death note, right? Like, you're done at that point, right? And it's also just like you can't put the genie back in the bottle. Like, you already let LeBron become a GM. You can't take it away from him, or he's just going to go do it somewhere else. So I really do fault Rob Pelinka for most of this. Like, Because I would argue a little bit that he's not a good GM. I don't think he is a
No,
good GM. I do not think he
I
is a
agree with
good
you.
GM. I just do not think he is a bad GM either. I don't think he is one of the worst. I
Yeah.
really don't. It's like you look at the roster they constructed for the bubble was impeccably put together for LeBron's play style, right? Now we could question how much of that was LeBron's choice, how much of the whatever, right?
Yeah.
And now this is coming from the biggest LeBron stan on planet Earth, right? One of them. I can also be realistic and say LeBron is also the one that just decided to go for Russell Westbrook. So
Mm-hmm.
did he really put that bubble team together as much as we think he did? Because it doesn't seem like he did a very good job of it with Russell Westbrook. So I question a little bit like where did some of the smaller choices along the way lead to more of their
Mm-hmm.
successes, right? And I'm not saying that that's Rob Pelinka. I'm just saying, even coming from a big LeBron fan, you can't just say all the bad stuff that's Pelinka's fault. All the good stuff that is LeBron's doing, right? Because that's not reality. It's just
Yeah.
not, you know. And when it comes down to it, like the Lakers stuck with Rob Pelinka over Magic Johnson, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
whatever that situation was, because that was super weird then, right? But they made that choice.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
could have been out of Rob Pelinka then.
Yeah.
It's
I
their
mean,
fault. Whatever this situation is their fault.
yeah. I mean, the Lakers have to ultimately take the blame for this. Again, you, especially Jeannie Buss,
Mm-hmm.
and Rob Pelinka to some extent as well. It's just like, you're the ones making the decisions at the end of the day. My only thing for that is really thinking about. I remember 2 years ago when we were having the same conversation, with Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson. Everybody was calling for Rob Pelinka's head, right? Everybody was saying, Rob Pelinka out. He's not doing a good job. We should get rid of him and other things like that. And then all of a sudden they win a championship in the bubble, and everything's all forgiven. And I think the Lakers, for better or for worse, have a short-term memory when it comes to their championships, and they expect to be like in the championship every single year. They expect to be fighting for the championships in their respected games. NFL, NBA, MLB. The reason why they went and got Mookie Betts. The reason why they went and got Matt Stafford. I mean, they go after the stars. They go after the people that can
What they
help them
do.
win. And that's just kind of the reality of being an LA team, is that you have to
They
go for the
cater.
stars. They cater
Cater to
to,
those stars too.
yeah. I mean, they cater to the stars. They cater to the fans. I mean, the fans are the ones that, I don't know if you've been on Twitter or you've been in LA when the Lakers are playing, or when the Rams, for how little fans they have. It doesn't matter what team it is. Like, they are so passionate about their sports teams. Like, they will crucify anybody. They'll crucify anybody if you talk bad
Oh
about
yeah.
them. And so, like, at the end of the day, I think when we have to look at this is that I think it was good for the Lakers not to trade away Russell Westbrook for John Wall. I think that would have been a mistake. You don't, especially because you don't know how long LeBron is going to play for you. He could just say, screw it, I'm not staying until I'm going to leave next year. I think he maybe is under contract for one more year, but after
One more
that,
year after this. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, why would I want to trade and mortgage my 2027 pick when I know I'm going to be screwed for the next couple of years, because we've traded away that first round pick each and every year when it becomes available to trade. And so,
Just
I,
you already signed up for it though.
yeah,
That's the only thing I could say. Like you can't have it both ways.
yeah,
I get the logic, and this is coming from a Knicks fan, right? Like all the fans, everybody was demanding a trade, right?
mm-hmm,
You've done it up until this point. You've made those trades happen every step of the way until
right,
now. And now you said no, right?
mm-hmm,
You chose to put the onus on you, Rob Pelinka. Rob Pelinka chose right
yeah,
in that moment to say, now everything that happens from this point on is my fault. Right? He literally put the knife in his own back. Like, I could not believe it when I saw that. Like, this coming out, whether it's correct or not, right? He put the
yeah,
kibosh on this trade. He did, right? I think it's
mm-hmm,
pretty safe to say it would have happened if not for Pelinka saying no.
yeah,
He just accepted all blame. Maybe he did it on purpose. I think that's a good question. Maybe he said, I'll take getting fired this offseason, whatever. I'm still going to get paid. Right?
yeah.
I'm tired of being LeBron's sideshow, right? So I'm just going to say this is not going to work. And if we get better, I get the credit. And if we, tank, we continue to tank, I'm out of here and I get paid.
Yeah, exactly. I just think that when it comes down to it, I think Rob Pelinka will be happy in any role that he's in, whether he is an agent again, or whether he is a GM. I just think that I think that maybe Pelinka's over the LeBron clutch era of the Lakerland. I think that that's where it's coming to. I'm curious to see how Jeannie Buss feels about it. Obviously, she's not really posting about her Lakers anymore. She's more posting about her dogs and other things like that on Instagram and social media. So, we're gonna see what happens here. Again, when you're in LA, you're here for a good time, not a long time. And so when it comes down to it, I don't think Lakerland is like a place where GMs should look to rest their laurels on, or like be almost kind of be like, I'm going to be here for years. I mean, they got rid of Jerry West, if you remember right. Like they got rid of him.
They almost got rid of Kobe too. It almost happened a couple times. So
yeah, and so like they're trying to move on and try and do their thing. So we're gonna see what happens. For the rest of this seems to be beef. And again, we'll talk a little bit about this next topic in a second about LeBron James throwing shade to Rob Pelinka, but I just want to read some comments here really quick. Tar Heel Nation said Pete will celebrate once LeBron signs with a 2-year, $90 million contract with the Knicks in July.
And I'd take it. I will not lie to you. I would rather be average with LeBron James than average without LeBron James. Straight up.
Yeah.
And to be straight up honest with you too, we'd be a really good team right now if we had LeBron James on our team.
Yeah. I mean, we all remember the decision. It was like a crazy time. The Knicks, the Nets, Miami, Cleveland. I mean, there were so many teams involved. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to see that again.
Oh, man. We had him, too. It will never be closer than that, to having somebody like LeBron. I still stand by that as a Knicks fan.
What about the Durant? Close. What about the Durant one?
I don't think we were. I think LeBron's name was like, his pen was hovering above the paper.
I think the pen was hovering above Durant's.
I don't know. I think it was close, too.
And then Kyrie convinced him.
I think they were both very close, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just think LeBron, like, really has his whole career talked about the Garden and talked about how special of a place it is. KD will make mention of it, but not the way LeBron does. I really think he wanted to play in New York. I really do.
Yeah. And so, Pete, as we kind of wind down the next couple of minutes before we move on to the next topic, do you think that Pelinka stays? Does he leave? Like, where do you see his future as it pertains to being a Lakers GM?
I think it's gonna heavily depend on. We're gonna find out in a weird way, right? Like, one way or the other, it's either gonna be Rob or LeBron, right? Pelinka or LeBron. I think we'll know as soon as the offseason starts. If they keep Pelinka, I think that means LeBron is leaving.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I really don't think they're going to fire Rob Pelinka if LeBron leaves, no matter what. They won't do both. So I'm not sure. We'll see. Like, if LeBron kind of gets closer to the offseason, they're still, like, underperforming, not a playoff team, not even a play-in team. I think we'll get like the KD final season with the Warriors where we know he's leaving, right? Yeah. Like the whole last month of the season, it's like, oh, this dude's out of here, right?
Yeah.
And if at that point, Pelinka's staying for sure. So, if I had to pick right now, I think that's what's going to happen. I think LeBron is not going to be playing in Los Angeles next season. I just can't see this team pulling together. Just can't see this team pulling together to turn out the second half of the season with how daunting West is, how daunting the whole league is, to be fair. They're just not good enough. Like Anthony Davis, I'm sorry, Anthony Davis fans out there, mentality is not there for that guy.
Yeah.
It's not there. It was kind of there for the bubble, like enough for them to win, right? It is not there right now. Like, he's been better since he's been back. It's just not there, man. Like, you hear the comments he makes in the media about not wanting to play center, right? Like, their team would be better if he played center, and he just will not do it. He just does not want to do it. I just don't think you can win, and he should be the guy right now. Like, the prime of his career, right? LeBron is a freak, so he's still technically kind of in his prime, right? But he's not in his prime. It should be AD's team.
Yeah.
He's just not that guy. So, and that is what you're working with, and the rest of the roster is what it is. I just don't see it getting better for them, man. I really don't.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to, you have a team where LeBron maybe is on the fence and looking at his options and saying, dang, man, I could go this place and make this much money and set up maybe the future of, whatever my son and I are going to do in a couple of years. I don't think Anthony Davis is the guy that's going to sit LeBron down and have the conversation, say, hey, let's run it back, right? That's
Yeah.
not him. I don't think that's going to happen. There's nobody on this team that can do that. Russell Westbrook tries to have the meeting and LeBron laughs his way out of the door, right? So I think he's gone, man. I don't think they're good enough.
Yeah, and let's kind of move on to the next topic, and really kind of add on to that, and we can add on to this video, is really the fact of, LeBron James's passive aggressive comments to Rob Pelinka during the All-Star weekend. One, he called the Lakers a lackluster campaign, a hellstorm of a season, a true statement that is reflected in their 27-31 record. He lauded all sorts of nowhere praises on Oklahoma City general manager Sam Presti, a move that came in response to a question about Josh Giddey. It was curious at best and passive aggressive towards the Lakers general manager Rob Pelinka at worst. He raved the Cavs general manager Kobe Altman, who is kind of weird because he did not like him from what I remember, highlighting all the draft picks and trades that has sparked his old team renaissance without him. He also talked about the Los Angeles Rams general manager Les Snead. He also made it known heading into February 10th trade deadline that he believed the Lakers needed some reshuffling when they were routed by the Milwaukee in the home game a couple days ago. And again, so there's a lot of, I would say, hints for Rob Pelinka's basically going to get his pink slip. I just don't see him staying there, man. Like, if the Lakers, are a bad team once again for a second year in a row where they get out in the first round, I can't see him staying. I can't see him I can't see a genie bust with the Lakers justifying keeping Rob Pelinka if they know that they can't acquire the assets that they need to keep a guy like LeBron James happy. Because like we talked about, like his playing time and like his career time is so short already, and you know that he wants to play with Bronny. It's like, I just don't see him trying to sign anywhere. I don't see it, Pete. I just don't see Rob Pelinka surviving another year if they have another mediocre season, which they are on the verge of. I would say they're on the verge of a collapse, and that's not to be hyperbolic for Lakers fans who probably feel that way. But I can't be on the side. And again, I'm not a big fan of the passive aggressiveness. Obviously, I think LeBron James is probably talking to Rob to his face about like, yo, we need to make some moves here. We can't just be lackadaisical, and then it turns into, oh, we're actually searching in the buy-in market. And they don't even get the guy that they were, projected to get in Goran Dragic. He actually ended up going to the Nets just today.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that as well. Like, that's a great point guard, a veteran point guard that could add a lot of dynamics to this Lakers team. You get Russell at the 2 now. You get LeBron James at the 3. You get AD at the 4 when he's healthy. And then you get, I don't even know who they have at center anymore. They could go Horton Tucker and LeBron James, or Horton Tucker and Anthony Davis. But I'm at a loss right now for where the Lakers are going to be at this season, because I think that it really is telling that the writing is on the wall for these guys. The writing is on the wall for Rob Pelinka to lose his job. It's on the wall for anybody in that organization that was probably, I would say, a Rob Pelinka disciple and basically just going to get the boot.
Yeah. I mean, because I think let's read between the lines just a little bit on a couple of LeBron's comments, right? Like, I would say, if you're going to sense the common trend between Sam Presti and Les Snead, they both are very different philosophies, right? Les Snead is the classic, the F those picks, right? Quote. And Pelinka is F that, we want all the picks, right? Like, he's the opposite. So I think the common trend between the two of them, though, is that neither of them are afraid to make a move, right? To win or to become better, right? Like, opposites in their mentality, other than the fact that they're constantly making trades, right?
Right.
And that is a very common trend amongst LeBron James's teams, right? He is always shuffling the deck if he needs to, making moves, replacing players with different guys, finding the fits he needs to middle of the season whenever he can. So I think that's interesting. Here's my next step, though, right? Because I think Sam Presti is a very interesting choice for why he would say Sam Presti. Right? Maybe going to start at the top of the most likely, and I'm going to do 3 points going down to the least likely. One, LeBron is recognizing that with the lack of picks on the Lakers, Bronny is not coming to the Lakers. Like, that's
Yeah.
not happening. There's no way he can come there, right? Or does he probably think Rob Pelinka will make the moves necessary to get Bronny when it comes time for Bronny, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's point one, right? Point two is that maybe he's shuffling the deck in a sense that he's going to compliment Rob Pelinka and say, maybe that situation is not that bad for me, right? Maybe it's not. Like, somewhere like that is maybe more what I mean, right? Not specifically the Thunder, but somewhere
Right.
that's young, has a lot of picks. It's going to be a young team for Bronny, not for
Mm-hmm.
LeBron, but for Bronny.
Right.
Because realistically, like, I think that we could probably ascertain that's probably LeBron's like primary goal, right? I think he's going to come into that first year, and we talked about this. I mentioned this earlier, but like, he's not going to go all in for his one season with Bronny. I
Right.
don't think. Like, unless
Right.
they miraculously, like you said, get drafted to some team, like they get drafted. Bronny gets drafted to
Uh-huh.
Milwaukee, right? Like, okay, that's one situation. That's probably not going to happen, though. It probably isn't. So maybe he is looking at a team like the Thunder and saying, hey, they have a lot of picks. They can do a lot as far as getting better in the time that I will be on their team without Bronny, and they'll have
Right.
the assets to get it done when it comes time. So I think that's really like, I think it was an interesting choice, man. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's so calculated. It's so calculated.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like all the decisions, especially when you have that prestige and power, like LeBron James does around the league as being the
Yeah.
ambassador, like you just know that there's stuff you have to read between the lines with some of the stuff, man. It's like he's obviously not excited about the way the Lakers have played this season. I don't think anybody's denying that. I don't think anybody's trying to hide the fact that no one's excited about the way the Lakers are playing. But I do agree with you in that sense, Pete. Like they look at the Oklahoma City Thunder, they have so many draft picks that's coming up. They could be like, well, especially if they get the pieces around them, uh, they get those pieces going. Like, does LeBron James go to Oklahoma City Thunder and just play there if Bronny gets drafted there? Like that's something that could potentially happen. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people aren't seeing that as well. I think a lot of people are just seeing the passive aggressiveness and basically like, it's just shade at LeBron, or sorry, shade at Rob Pelinka. But like you said, it could be,
I think it's more than that.
it's
I
more
really
than,
do.
yeah. I agree with you in that sense. Like, I think it's more than that. I think they just wanna, they look at all these pieces, they look at everything. I think the biggest takeaway is that LeBron James is obviously not happy with the Lakers'
Mm-hmm.
performance this season. I think that anybody with a common sense can understand that. Like, I think everyone would be upset as well. But I think, like you said, I think it honestly kind of goes to your point with Kobe Altman as well, Pete. What you said about Sam
Exactly.
Presti, like you get those draft picks, you do a good job of like rebuilding the team, and they've done a great job since LeBron James has left to like be the number 4 seed. I think they're the number 4 seed or even number 2 seed in the. I need to look at the standings again, but they're a top 5 team in the NBA currently, and so like when you are a top 5 team in the NBA, LeBron James is going to take notice of that. He's going to see Kobe Altman. It's funny because Kobe Altman didn't really do a good job when LeBron was on the team. I don't know if this is like the rest of the league having their agenda against LeBron. Um, but I do think that this is going to be a very interesting scenario to play out for when LeBron James is the free agent, and we can really get to know the nooks and crannies of the relationship between Palinka and LeBron James.
Exactly. Yeah. Because, like, I think what he's saying is like, there's 3 points to it, right? Like I was mentioning. One is that like the Les Snead is what he wanted the Lakers to be, right? He
Right,
created the Rams in the vision that LeBron wanted, right? We're
right,
constantly going to have these stars shuffling in and out. We're going to get new guys when we need to on a dime if that's what it takes to win. That's
yeah,
what we're going to go do. But it wasn't that, right? So then he mentions Sam Presti as maybe an option of somewhere to go slash the type of team he could be looking at for what he wants in the future. And then I think the Kobe Altman Cleveland is just another potential lining up of like, yeah, I could go there too. Like that is the type of team I want to be a part of. And it just so happens to be Cleveland, right? Like what better ending? Because realistically, like here's another question I wanted to ask you getting into this topic, right?
Right.
Because this could be me. I would say some people would think this is revisionist history, but did you really see LeBron ending his career with the Lakers? Because I don't really think
No.
I ever did. Like, he never felt like a Laker to me, truly.
Well,
And I don't know what Lakers fan, like, I think probably Lakers fans drank the Kool-Aid and, convinced themselves that this dude is, you know, gold and purple till he dies. Like, but I just don't think I ever got that sense. Like, he is not a Laker in the
yeah.
traditional. He's not going to be James Worthy doing the post-game shows talking about how much he loves the Lakers, right? James
Exactly.
Worthy loves the Lakers. Kobe Bryant loved the Lakers, right? LeBron he's a mercenary. Like, he's there
Yeah.
because they were the best team for him to accomplish what he wanted to. So I think that this was bound to happen for me. But
Exactly.
my question, I guess, did you really see him finishing with the Lakers?
No, I don't think anybody did. I think, he doesn't really scream Laker, right? I think that, I think if he would have won the championship last year, or, I think the first season, I think he would have been like inaugurated as a Laker for life, right? Or like, one of the all-time Laker greats. But he didn't win the championship. He won the one in the bubble. I just don't see it because, or like, I don't see him ending his career in LA, because I think that there's another move to be made, and I think he's looking for that move, and that's why he's trying to praise all the GMs to maybe even butter them up as well, and be like, hey, you take me, you get Bronny, or you get Bronny, you get me. And these other situations as well. It's like, praise the GM because they know that they can put pieces around, and even maybe this might be like a low key tampering, Pete. Like, if we think about it, he's trying to say
Reverse
that,
tampering?
like, yeah, reverse tampering, like, hey, I love
Get
what
me,
Sam
boys.
Presti, yeah, like, I love what you're doing, Sam Presti. If that roster's right, I might come to you, or like,
Genuinely, I agree with you. I really think that's what this was more than shade at Rob Pelinka. Like, a lot of people are taking it.
yeah,
Like, of course he was doing that. He doesn't even need to read. You don't even need to read between the lines. Like, I think that's so
exactly,
much less of why he said it. Like, he is coming out making the point. I don't need to be in Los Angeles to be LeBron James,
right,
nor will I have what I want. Like, because one way or the other, LeBron James, love him, hate him, had a vision of what the Lakers were going to be. He wanted to
yeah,
be a movie star, run Los Angeles, take over LA, and have it be like, continue the legacy of these type of players
exactly,
dominating Los Angeles, right? He can do that because he's LeBron, but it really is not. It's like almost the same way that probably KD felt with Golden State, right? Golden State is Stephen Curry's team, right? Los Angeles, the Lakers will never be LeBron's team. Like, he
yeah,
will never be the guy there. So I think for him, it's a matter of this isn't all it was cracked up to be when I was, convincing myself, but also I accomplished what I wanted to. I won a championship there. I don't need to be here anymore. And all the things I wanted didn't happen. So
yeah,
it's time to go somewhere else. And he wants to own a team. We know
yeah,
that. He's said it 150 times, right?
yep,
I think that would have happened already with the Lakers. Like, everybody had their under the table conspiracy theories that he had done that when he
yeah,
went to the Lakers, right? That would have come out now if that was the case.
exactly,
Would have come out now if he got some percentage or something like that. That has not happened.
yep,
So I don't know, man. Opening the door back to some of these more small market teams to say, hey, you want me for life? Maybe you can have me if you want me, my son or whoever, right? So I don't know, man. It's interesting. I really, if I had to bet, though, I do not think we will see LeBron James in a Los Angeles Lakers jersey after this season. I don't think so. I would not
yeah,
bet on it, but I don't know. It smells like the end of Cleveland again to me.
yeah, exactly. It seems, we'll see what happens, man. I think this is going to be a very interesting situation as we continue to monitor the LeBron James storyline, and seeing what happens next, man. It's going to be a very interesting scenario to kind of look at and see what will happen to LeBron James in the coming future.